What's up, Ocean? You got Matt here, and today I'm bringing you a guide on how to use Gholdengo in competitive Pokemon. This thing is crazy, has one of the best abilities, the best typings, best move pools in the entire game. So if you're excited, make sure to leave a like on the video, help us reach our like goal of 75 likes. Make sure to comment your thoughts on Gholdengo down in the comments below, and of course subscribe to the channel to help us reach our goal of 3,000 subscribers. Let's go ahead and jump on into it. Starting off with Gholdengo's stats, its distribution is kinda nutty. It's got 87 base HP with 60 attack, 95 defense, 133 special attack, 91 special defense, and the 84 speed for a total base stat of 550 overall. Now, that's not bad at all. Having the distribution it has in its special attack and attack tells you pretty clearly this is a special attacking Pokemon. And if you didn't notice by the stats, you'll notice by the move pool it has a ton of crazy special moves. But the fact that it has an amazing typing paired with the defenses of 87, 95, and 91 allow it to be a really good physical or special sponge, coming in, taking multiple hits, and being just a general nuisance to a lot of different Pokemon in the metagame. On top of that, this Pokemon shares the typing as Aegislash, but its speed is a lot higher, at base 84 overall, which is really good and allows this Pokemon to be a lot more offensive immediately than a Pokemon like Aegislash does. I think for that reason, it's going to have a lot of utility in this upcoming metagame for the Paldea decks. As for its abilities, I mentioned before that it has the same typing as Aegislash, being Ghost and Steel, which is absolutely incredible. Definitely one of the best types to have in the competitive metagame. You only have 4 weaknesses to Ground, Fire, Ghost, and Dark, and you have so many resistances. You have resistances to Grass, Ice, Flying, Psychic, Rock, Dragon, Steel, Fairy, and Bug 4 times, and then you have 3 immunities on top of that to Normal, Fighting, and Poison. All that is absolutely incredible. There are so many different types that this thing just comes in on, eats a hit, and that can either do big damage back or can just keep stalling out and putting pressure on your opponent's teams with its crazy good and diverse move pool. The fact that this thing has this typing, the fact that it's now immune to fighting type attacks, which would normally be super effective against it because of its steel typing, is such a huge advantage for all the steel types in the metagame right now. Of course, it is weak to dark, and dark types are running around in the meta right now, so we're going to go and cover some ways to beat those things, but this Pokemon has some pretty good ways of doing that. But first, let's go ahead and start talking about its ability, which is Good as Gold. This ability is kind of crazy. The fact that this ability is basically like Magic Bounce, or Magic Guard rather, but kind of a level up, is really good. It's just straight up immune to status moves. Not just moves like Will-O-Wisp and Thunder Wave, and I guess Toxic if it could hit it, but it's also immune to moves like Taunt and Encore, and Defog. This thing blocks Defog, which is absolutely crazy. The fact that you're able to do that means you're now able to stop the forms of removal that are Rapid Spin, Mortal Spin, and Defog. So if you get up hazards and you have a Gholdengo in the back, you're pretty confident they're going to stay up for the entirety of the game, which is really crazy. Definitely one of the best abilities out there to be introduced in the game. I don't think that any Pokemon will ever get something like this ability, at least in the next few generations. Moving on to its move pool, this thing has a crazy diverse move pool with a ton of really good options. Starting off with its Ghost Stab, you're looking at Shadow Ball and Hex, both of which have a lot of utility depending on what kind of set you're running. If you're running Thunder Wave, you're going to run Hex. If you're not, you're going to run Shadow Ball. Then you have its Steel Stab, starting off with the main one being Flash Cannon. That's a really common move to see run this Pokemon. It's got really good base power overall, no downside, which is really nice. Then you have access to Steel Beam. I think Steel Beam is a little bit less useful because you have access to what's basically an even better move than that in Make It Rain. Such an awesome name for a move, I love it. It's a 120 base power special steel move that basically will give you like extra coins at the end of the battle, but it also lowers your special attack by 1 stage. So 120 base power, lowering your special attack by 1 stage, reminds me of Draco Meteor, but it's not as severe, the downside, which is really nice. So I like that a lot. On top of that, it gets ways to hit opposing fighting types and opposing dark types, more importantly, in Dazzling Gleam. Really important there. And of course, it also gets Focus Blast to break through those dark types as well. It also gets access to Psychic and Psy-Shock, which could have their usefulness in depending on certain metagames that you might be in. I think at the end of the day, having both of them allows for the most amount of flexibility on this Pokemon. It has Power Gem to break through opposing Fire-type Pokemon and opposing Flying types. And then of course it has Thunderbolt for those opposing Corviknights, which is really amazing and really important for the current metagame that we're in, because Corviknight does so much for so many different teams. After that, some of the more statusy moves that it gets, we're going to start off with Recover. Yeah, this is a Pokemon that has the ridiculous defensive typing of Steel and Ghost. Has access to HP of 87, defense of 95, special defense of 91, and has access to a recovery move. That is not okay. This Pokemon's going to take hits for days. I really like that idea for this Pokemon to get recover. It's going to do a really big number on the metagame with a bulky recover set. On top of that, it gets Nasty Plot. Yeah, Nasty Plot on a Pokemon like this is just crazy. The fact that it has access to a way to boost its special attack, which is already sky high at 133, and then has access to moves like Make It Rain, which are super powerful, is really important. Has access to Trick, because Scarf sets are really, really good. We're going to cover that a bit later, but Trick is a really good item on this Pokemon here, and then has access to Reflect and Light Screen. I just want to mention them. Not really going to be seeing much play, but I think that Reflect and Light Screen do have some utility depending on your metagame. Moving on to some good teammates for this Pokemon, I think one of the best teammates is going to be Roaring Moon. This Pokemon is a Dark and Dragon type, so it forces in fairies, and this Pokemon annihilates fairies. It destroys them. A lot of the Pokemon that were fairy types that had access to Mystical Fire lost it in this generation, like Sylveon, for example. So having lost Mystical Fire is a big deal, because now there's really no way to touch this Pokemon for good damage. Yeah, there's Shadow Ball, but Shadow Ball is going to likely pop up maybe a weakness policy. You're going to be able to take multiple hits because you're a bulk, and you can recover it back up as well. So super important there. Having Roaring Moon there to force those fairy types and pivot on them because of its U-turn is really key and really important in certain situations. In the same vein, there's Hydreigon, which also has the same type as the Roaring Moon. This Pokemon, though, it actually resists or is immune to every single type that Gholdengo is weak to. It resists the Ghost, the Dark, and the Fire moves, and it has an immunity to ground because of Levitate. And at the same time, it still forces in fairies and still U-turns out of them to get into Gholdengo. Really important to pivot around with this Pokemon. Then there's something like Garchomp. The reason why I have Garchomp here is because it gets access to Spikes and Stealth Rocks in this generation. And I mentioned before that you're basically immune to every single form of hazard removal with Gholdengo out on the field. So really important to make sure your hazards stay up and be able to wear down and pressure your opponents significantly. Then there's something like Chi-Yu. Chi-Yu is the fish Pokemon. It is dark and it is fire. This Pokemon has a really high special attack stat, and I think that it pairs really well with Gholdengo because they can break each other's checks incredibly well. A lot of the time you're going to see opposing ghost types come in, or maybe even water types come in, and having access to ways to break through them with your backup stabs, we'll call it, is really useful and can definitely form the combination, a core of two really good offensive Pokemon. Then I have Great Tusk. I think Great Tusk has a lot of utility in the metagame as a great spinner, but also as a great offensive break with like Headlong Rush and close combat and just powerful moves like that. Having access to a way to break through darks and steals and normals and pressures bulky waters is really important for Pokemon like Gholdengo. I think Iron Bundle makes a lot of sense, which actually, as I was recording this, or as I was actually scripting this up, it got banned, which is crazy to think about. But the fact this Pokemon got banned is a big deal. It just, what it does for Gholdengo is it breaks really well the opposing special Pokemon, or special defensive walls, I should say. So just like with Chi-Yu, this Pokemon does the exact same thing, just a bit faster. And the fact that it's in Ubers now means that, hey, we're not going to see it in OU for at least a little while. Then I have Blissey, which I think has a lot of utility for Gholdengo as a way to just be a really good defensive combination. Blissey's only weakness is to fighting, and then Gholdengo has a weakness to Ghost, and these two Pokemon have immunities to one of each other's biggest weaknesses, which is a really big deal. This Pokemon does get access to ways to like status your opponent and keep hazards up, which is really nice. It can no longer Wish Pass into Gholdengo, which hurts, but at the end of the day, it still is a really solid combination to take special hits if your Gholdengo is going to be more physically defensive or just more of an offensive Pokemon in general. And then lastly, I have Grimmsnarl here. Grimmsnarl is great because it gets up the screens, which is nice to allow Gholdengo to break really effectively, but also it's good to get momentum to Gholdengo because it gets Parting Shot now, which has a lot of utility. And on top of that, they form the combination, the start of a combination of a really good Fairy Dragon Steel Core to resist a lot of different attacks, and having access to a typing like Dark and Ghost to give you 3 more immunities to Psychic and to Fighting and Normal is really good. Having just those 4 types in general, Fairy Dark, Ghost and Steel, have 6 immunities. 5 immunities, which is insane. So really valuable there to have a combination of these 2 Pokemon. Now we're going to talk about which Terra types are best for a Pokemon like Gholdengo. There's a lot of different options for a Pokemon like this, but I think the best option is going to be the normal type. Why normal? Well, on any Ghost type Pokemon, I want to advocate heavily for the normal type or the dark type, but I think normal specifically for Gholdengo makes a lot more sense because you're going to be able to be immune to the Ghost type attacks, which is really, really valuable. Having access to that immunity is going to let you stay alive a lot longer. There's a lot of good Ghost types in the format, even with the banning of Houndstone and Fluttermane. I still think that it has a lot of utility to run a normal set for the Gholdengo in its Terra type, and just the main reason for the immunity to Ghost type attacks. Then I think that fighting makes a lot of sense as well as a way to help break through opposing dark types in the format with something like Terra Blast. Can be really powerful, and you don't have to run Focus Blast, that means, because you can run 80 base power Terra Blast, and that can be just as powerful depending on the situation. And then lastly, I think that actually Ghost makes a lot more sense than Steel does in my mind. I just feel like Ghost offensively is going to do a bit better in this metagame than Steel would, and that's why I want to have the Ghost type Terra Blast, or Ghost type Terra type, so you can have the extra bonus to your Ghost type attacks when you Terastalize. That just makes the most amount of sense for me. If you guys have any other suggestions, let me know down in the comments, of course. Moving on to some items that I think are really good for Pokemon like Gholdengo, we're looking at the Choice Scarf, which works really well for Pokemon that want to run a trick set, but also Pokemon that is as fast as Gholdengo, has the speed to be able to trick something away, but also be really good offensively as well. I think a leftover set is really amazing because of the fact that you're so bulky, you have an amazing defensive typing. You can either set up with subs, or you can just go ahead and just stay fat and stay setting up status moves like Thunder Wave against your opponent's entire team. Could be really good in certain situations. Life Orb as an offensive Pokemon makes, again, a lot of sense. The fact you're able to boost your already really sky-high special attack by 30% is amazing, and you already have really powerful moves like Make It Rain, Shadow Ball, Focus Blast, Dazzling. You're going to do a lot of damage really quickly. And then lastly, I think Assault Vest has some viability because of the crazy coverage this thing has, but I do think the main moves, the main items you're going to see on Pokemon like this are going to be Choice Scarf, Leftovers, and the Life Orb. Now let's look at some movesets for Gholdengo. I have 4 of them for you guys today. We're going to start off with the first one, which is a Choice Scarf set. We're running Shadow Ball, running Flash Cannon, Dazzling Gleam, and a Trick. Dealing can be replaced with Focus Blast. We're running max speed with a Timid Nature to outspeed opposing Gholdengos, but then also trick opposing Pokemon, and then have a chance to be able to get big damage off on them once they have no longer an ability to just recover back up because they are locked into a move because of the tricked Choice Scarf. I think it's a really solid option. Then there is going to be the Gholdengo that is running Leftovers. Here we have a bit of a interesting set here. We're running 64 EVs in speed, which is enough speed so that the Gholdengo can outspeed modest base 60s. So if the base 60s, like let's say a Abomasnow, for example, is base 60, if that thing's running a max speed set with a modest nature or a non-jolly, timid, whatever nature, you're going to outspeed it, which is nice. And I'm running Nasty Plot and Substitute on this because I think a set like this with Make It Rain really appreciates having the bulk that this Pokemon does have now, with the Leftovers to recover back the HP and then be able to just set up as much as you want with the powerful stab options of Shadow Ball and Make It Rain. Then we have a Life Orb set, which is again just really powerful. We're running Recover on it to be able to get as much health back as possible from the Life Orb chip, which can be really advantageous. We're running a Modest Nature to do as much damage as possible. And then lastly, we have a specially defensive set with the Leftovers as well. Calm with Hex, Flash Cannon, Thunder Wave, and Recover. This set should be able to spread hazards and status rather to your opponent's entire team and be able to then slow them down to the point where this Pokemon will outspeed and get big damage off with Hexes. Really good sets here that we have for Gholdengo. If you have any other suggestions, let me know down in the comments, of course. Moving on though to some predictions. This Pokemon in the Smogon tiers will be, in my opinion, OU. I think this thing has so much utility based on its typing, its move pool, its ability, the stat distribution, everything. It really is amazing in terms of what it does. I just don't see a universe where it falls below OU. I don't think it's ever going to go to Ubers, but the fact that it's going to have a lot of utility in the OU tier is going to say something. It's a Pokemon that's going to be getting, I think in my opinion, the best of this Pokemon is going to come when it's in the Smogon tiers, because in Draft League there's ways to prepare around it a bit better, but in Smogon you just kind of have to go for it. And this is a Pokemon like Palafin in my mind that just got banned as well, is going to be better in OU or in Smogon rather than it would be in other metagames. As for VGC, I think this Pokemon is one of the best Steel type breakers in the doubles format, definitely based on the Steel type Pokemon we have left in the tiers. I do think, however, most Steel types are going to be run defensively this time around. Reason being is that's just the metagame we're going to be in right now. Very defensive metagame in terms of Steel types, and very offensive pretty much everywhere else. The Steel types are going to be a pivot. This Pokemon is going to run less of an offensive set, I think, or if it does run offensive, it's not going to be as effective as it would be in singles. And then finally for Draft League, this is my specialty. If you guys enjoy that kind of stuff, make sure to subscribe to the channel, of course. And on a 17 to 18 point scale, I think it'll be around 14 to 15 points. I think this thing has so much utility for what it provides. I think eventually it's going to settle down to around that range because there's ways to play around it a lot more effectively than things like Aegislash. But at the end of the day, it offers so much for a team. There's a lot of broken stuff that are going to be around. I think that at the end of the day, people are going to gravitate more towards Pokemon like the Iron Bundle, the Palafin, the Roaring Moon, the Iron Valiant, all these crazy Pokemon, and be able to just break effectively with those things. That Gholdengo is going to be like more of an afterthought, I think. And like I said before, I think that Smogon is going to be the best out of all 3 different formats. I think in VGC is going to be the worst. I think Draft is going to be in the middle there. But yeah, crazy Pokemon nonetheless. And that's all I've got for you guys today on Gholdengo. This Pokemon is absolutely crazy, and I hope you see why now. This thing just has so much going for it, and it really is just an amazing Pokemon overall. If you enjoyed the video, then make sure to leave a like on the video, guys. We're aiming for 75 likes on today's content. Make sure to comment which Pokemon you want to see me cover next, or your thoughts on Gholdengo as well. And of course, subscribe to the channel to help us reach our sub goal of 3,000 subscribers. I also want to give a big thank you to our YouTube channel members. Our level 1s are going to be Liv, Eric, Zeke, and Texas Man. Our level 2 is Tone, and our level 3 is Sully. Thank you all of them for supporting the channel financially and going the extra mile. It is really appreciated. And thank you all so much for watching as well. I hope you enjoyed the video, and I will see you guys all tomorrow.